What's up, Yoon-Fam? It is I,
Mark Yoon.
It's no secret that the Astral Fissures and the Astral Chaos in and of itself, they tend to lead to some interesting story developments. Some would say this would be lazy writing, or some would even say that it's a good use of the actual lore that they have within the game. I'm not exactly sure where I fall when it comes to either disparaging or encouraging the writers to utilize the Astral Fissures. I know that usually time travel and things of that nature is usually lazy writing, and it can lend to continuity problems, which you can write yourself into a corner very, very easily unless you are super skillful in what you know what you're doing. Usually when we're covering vast amounts of lore over the period of years for multiple games, continuity is often thrown to the wayside as soon as something like time travel is introduced. Now, most of these instances can fall into a situation where it's canon or non-canon, such as Geralt is technically canon to the story, but they're not going to be able to use his name in the future, but 2B is non-canon. So these kind of instances can lend towards some interesting, at least, kind of turns of events. But what I want to talk about today is opening up the Soul Calibur universe into a multiverse of sorts, utilizing the thing that they've already gave us. So we see that any kind of guest that we have, they say the Astral Fissure did it. Our custom character being part of the story came from the Astral Chaos and can utilize the Astral Chaos. Even so far as when the new characters pop up like Ishka and stuff, they are just conscious beings that were brought forth from the Astral Chaos from within Soul Edge. So it's pretty much like a catch-all kind of situation where this undefined universe can define this universe, which is a weird kind of situation to come in. It's like kind of maybe a chicken and an egg situation, but it's more towards answering a question with a question instead of, giving definitive answers. But what the hell? Since they've already introduced this in Soul Calibur 6, and they've already explained some things away in the lore with this Astral Fissure and the Astral Dimension, why not utilize it further? We could open this up to some kind of multiverse type of deal where everything coexists together. We do know that the past timeline and the new timeline, while not coexisting in the same time frame, are both canon. They're both they both happened, and even some instances of other games have been, I don't want to say canonized, but lend more credence to because of decisions that were made in Soul Calibur 6, such as Ishka. But utilizing this is a very dangerous tool. So we already have some instances of interdimensional travel with Cassandra, and of course we have the visitation of Zasalamel to his new current self to inform him about the situation. And we have Geralt traversing different universes even to get here. So there's already kind of an established multiverse as it is. But this is something that can be expanded so that we're not getting to the good part too quickly, if you know what I mean. Like, you kind of want to draw things out. I think a big problem with Soul Calibur 4, and in turn Soul Calibur 5, is they laid all their cards out on the table. They said, this is the Hero King that returned. He's mad about his son and wants to bring balance and order to the universe. And he's going to use some nefarious methods to do so. But he is, in all attempts and purposes, like a god. He is the ultimate being in Soul Calibur. And this is the main thing that we need to come together to thwart. So they threw all their eggs in one basket. And they kind of like threw stuff at the wall and saw what stuck. And we know what happened from there. A lot of people love Algol. A lot of people don't like Algol. But he was their end-all, be-all. And they wrote themselves into a corner where they had nowhere to go from after 5. So even if 5 didn't cause the series to run into early cancellation, they would have had to reboot the series anyway, because what would have happened? It's a similar situation that we find ourselves in Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath right now. Like, where do you go from here? That's kind of a situation where if you get to a point where you can't return to individual character stories and grassroots type of deal, then you kind of have to reboot everything. So I can kind of see why they did that. But they can use this to their advantage if they want to as well. Right now it's primarily used to explain instances of the lore that they want to keep from the past timeline and explaining guest characters. While it's not hard for anyone to see that this can lead to, obviously, walls in the writing, we do want to know where it's going to go from here. There's a couple ideas that we can utilize to actually help explain this away or bring this into a kind of new light, as it were. But first, I want to define the Astral Chaos itself, and I think we're going to do that in another video, because there's a lot to that, and a lot that I think actually is going on there. But whatever is linking the other dimensions to this dimension has something to do with the energies found within. And whether or not that's linked to any of the swords is another issue. But the multiverse, as it were, can lead to interesting combinations. I mean, if we want to see a Soul Calibur tag, this would be like the best way to go about it. We can have the past timeline characters, even the characters that showed up in Soul Calibur 5 that some people liked. If we're going to have a tag situation, it's pretty much like every character in the universe is going to be able to be playable there. Obviously, except for characters who have rights and licensing issues attached to them, such as the guests. But if we want to stay within this canonized universe and we want a multiverse we can actually utilize properly, there's got to be some rules and ground issues that are covered for that. In tomorrow's video, I'm actually going to talk about one of those issues. I want to talk about linking to a future world. And I'm not talking about like the fan theory that Soul Calibur is undoubtedly the past of Tekken's future. I am one of the people that doesn't subscribe to that fan theory, so I kind of think it's too loosely connected and almost conspiratorial in a sense. But we're going to talk about my idea of what the future can hold for a future iteration of Soul Calibur tomorrow, because even though this game takes place in like the 1500s, right, and we have like all of this pseudo history within the game because a lot of it's changed for the game itself and fantastical elements are added, I think we can actually link together those two worlds well enough. But today is how we're going to do that, and tomorrow is what it's going to be. So using the Astral Fissure, I think we have to have some kind of device that's created, or some kind of magical element. Maybe even utilizing the Ultimate Seed and turn it against Aswell and use it as a kind of transportational device. Something where we can hone in on certain energies throughout the Astral Chaos and bring over or send help to and from. This would help explain away any additional lore that needs explaining. This could also talk about the different races that have been in Soul Calibur up to this point, like where did the lizard race come from? Like where did all of these different races and beings come from out of nowhere? So I'm not exactly sure how to explain that. I'm sure I'll come up with a better hypothesis for that in another video. But today's video, I just want to do the how. So like we have this, let's say, Ultimate Seed, or let's say it's even broken down into a specific energy that we use to power up some kind of transportational gate. But it has to be specific. There has to be rules involved. There has to be a direct correlation to another solid thing. We can't just pull anything in. I think it's an easy way to write ourselves into a corner if we do it that way. So perhaps we have energies that are linked to each other. So maybe if you use your own energies, let's say Ivy Valentine uses her energy to connect to another dimension, and it brings forth a different iteration of Ivy, or perhaps even a different iteration of someone down her family line or family tree. And this would be a good way to bring other characters in and explain characters that were in like 5. Because obviously ages are a thing now, so we can't, from the reboot on, directly bring those characters in unless we're explaining away time. But I think opening a multiverse could be a good and bad thing. So I'm always really shaky on this kind of stuff, to be honest, and I think it's like lazy writing to be able to go without the bounds of like your own canon in order to draw from. Some people think it's fun, but if you've written anything and actually like written like real things, you can tell that it is a slippery slope. But I'm lukewarm on it. I think it would be interesting and it would explain some things, but again, I'm not a big fan of answering questions with more questions. That being said, we're going to